Hey, what's up? Today I'm gonna show you guys southern Mexico's street food version of a pizza known as tlayuda. It's basically everything that you love about a quesadilla, tacos, nachos, and a pizza all at the same time. And I'll mention up front that I am clearly not Mexican, so this isn't an authentic version of this recipe, whatever that even means. I will say that this recipe is for something that tastes sick and is inspired by the tlayuda. And I think most of you guys are gonna see this recipe and decide that it's a must make sometime very soon. To get started, I'll need to make my pizza dough. Actually, this is more of a flour tortilla because there's no fermentation time and it's unleavened. So to make this tortilla dough into the jar of my food processor, I'll combine 300 grams of all-purpose flour, 6 grams of salt, and 50 grams of olive oil. Now the lid goes on and I'll pulse this food processor about 10 times. I want to mix this until the oil and salt are evenly spread throughout the flour, and I've got a gravelly mix going on. Next, with the chopper spinning, I'm going to grab 180 grams of cool water and stream that in through the top. By the way, if you don't have a food processor, this dough can be easily mixed by hand. Just throw everything into a medium bowl and stir until homogeneous, and then pick up this process at the next step. And once the water's in, I'll spin this for another 10 seconds, or until the dough starts to come together into a unified clod. There we go. That looks pretty dough-like, but it doesn't have any meaningful gluten development. So to make sure that this dough is strong enough to hold itself together later on, I'm gonna flip this out onto a lightly floured surface and knead it for about 3 minutes. And when it comes to kneading, there's basically no wrong way to do it. You just kind of fold it and roll it in whatever way feels right to you. The act of simply moving the dough will link up the proteins and help build strength. And after a quick 3-minute knead sesh, you can see that this dough is strong enough to hold a firm tug without tearing. Next, I'll grab my scale and cut this dough down into 6 roughly 80 to 90 gram size pieces. Now I'm gonna roll up or pre-shape all 6 pieces into tidy round balls that can be shaped into a pizza or tortilla later on. You can see to do that, I'm just rolling the dough in my palm while tucking the top underneath a little bit to create some extra strength and tension. And once I got 6 little baby tortilla balls, I'm gonna cover with a damp towel and set aside to rest for 15 minutes while I prep out the toppings for this pizza. First up is my bean sauce. To make that into the same jar that I made the dough in, I'm gonna add in 2 cans of black beans, one of which is not drained. I need that extra little bit of bean juice to help loosen up this mixture. Without it, I'd have bean spackle that would not be nice to spread onto a pizza. Next, in goes 5 grams of salt, 10 grams of cumin, 10 grams of onion powder, and 5 grams of garlic powder. Now the lid goes on and I'll spin everything until the beans are well broken down and smooth-ish. If you don't have a food processor, you could certainly just mash everything into a bowl with a potato masher until you've got something that resembles a puree. Once I got these beans spun down into something that's smooth and spreadable, I'll give them a quick taste.
Yeah, those taste like delicious canned refried beans. And for me, that's not a dig. I really like the flavor of beans out of a can. These don't need to be the world's best tasting beans, by the way. They're going on a pizza with a ton of other super intense flavors. But what we've got here is creamy, rich, and super savory. I think they're delicious.
Up next, we need to sort out the pizza meat. To top the 6 tortillas that we rolled out before, I'm gonna grab 450 grams or 1 pound of Mexican chorizo. Chorizo is kind of like a hybrid of pepperoni and sausage, if you think about it. It's spicy and a touch sour like pepperoni, and it's a little bit greasy like pizza sausage. To prep it for the tlayuda, I'm gonna drop 2 225 gram tubes of chorizo into a preheated medium heat pan and sizzle it off for about 8 to 10 minutes. As you can see, this chorizo is a little bit on the wet side, so I'll need to fry it off and cook it down until it's a little bit drier and it's starting to take on a little bit of browning. Also, I like to crumble this down as it cooks so it doesn't set into large, chewy sausage nuggets. I prefer a crumblier, looser texture to my chorizo. And after about 10 minutes of cooking, you can see this chorizo has thickened up, lost some moisture, and now it's frying in its own fat. It kind of looks like the canned chili that you put on top of a hot dog. Once it's cooled down a little bit, it should set up into a nuclear orange spicy thing that will be delicious when sprinkled on top of a pizza.
Yeah, it tastes like spicy meat paste. What is the chorizo even made out of though? I don't think I want to know.
Now to build this pizza, I'm gonna flour my cutting board, then drop on one of my dough balls. I'll flatten it out with my hand real quick. Then I'll grab my rolling pin and roll this thing until it's about 10 to 12 inches wide. Once I've given this a few back and forths and I got it spread out to about 5 inches, I'm gonna rotate it 90 degrees and then continue to spread it out in the other direction. One thing to keep in mind when rolling this out is that the dough is gonna start to stick a little bit to the board if it's not kept well floured. So at some point, I'm gonna hit it with a little bit more power powder, then flip it over and keep on rolling. And once I got this dough rolled out into the ballpark of 10 to 12 inches, I'm gonna carefully lay it out on some parchment paper that I've sprayed with some olive oil pan spray. This is gonna make moving the pizza in and out of the oven much easier. Now the first thing down is gonna be 3 large spoonfuls of my bean puree. I'll spread that out from edge to edge, leaving myself just a little bit of area around the outside that's bean free. That part's gonna crisp up real good in the oven and give us some crunch on the edges that's almost like a hard shell taco. Next, I'll grab about 75 grams of my chorizo and just crumble that down on top of the black beans real quick. Ooh, baby, that already looks so good. Lastly, I'll drop on 12 to 15 halved cherry tomatoes to bring some pops of bright, sweet juiciness to the final tlayuda. And once I've got everything spread out, it's time to bake. So I'm gonna scoot this tlayuda over to my pizza peel, then load the parchment right onto my pizza steel in a 500F oven and bake it for roughly 10 minutes. While that bakes, I'm gonna bust out the post-bake pizza toppings. To do that, I'll take 2 to 3 radishes and slice them thinly on my mandolin. Behind the radishes, I'll grab a 1/4 of a head of red cabbage and shred that thinly as well. What is that? Oh, it's the doorbell and my coffee order from Trade Coffee, the sponsor of this video. Ooh, I got something called Decaf Fool's Gold. If you're new to Trade, it's a coffee subscription service that curates some of the world's best coffees all in one place, including a ton of great decaf options, which is great for me because I love coffee, but I try not to drink a ton of caffeine. I keep my online Trade queue lined up with some of my favorite coffees that they offer, then I have it delivered whenever I'm running low on coffee. What I love about Trade is that all of their coffees are roasted and packaged to order. Like this one was roasted last Wednesday. That's very recent. I always drink my coffee hot and black, but if you're more of a cold coffee drinker like Lauren, Trade just started offering some of the best iced and cold brew coffees from specialty roasters all over the US. We just tried one of Trade's cold brew kits that came with this dope cold brew maker and a big old bag of cold brew beans from Alma Coffee, but they also have a ton of other options like ready to drink cans. To try Trade's hot or cold coffee for yourself, visit drinktrade.com/Brian. Plus, if you're interested in a monthly plan of rotating coffees, they're offering 30% off your first month with my link. Just go to drinktrade.com/Brian to try it out. Next up, I need to thinly slice some avocados. To do that, I'll just use a paring knife to zip this thing top to bottom every 1/4 inch or so. Then I'm gonna take a big spoon and scoop it out. If you were wondering how restaurants get those pretty slices on top of your salad, this is how. The last little bit of prep here is to make some crema. And when I say prep, I actually mean take a couple 100 grams of sour cream and combine it with a little bit of water, then stir it to thin it out. I throw mine into a squeezer because I get ultimate control over my zigzag. Crema is made. Now, let's check back on that tlayuda. After 10 minutes at 500F, this thing is roasted. When I pull it out, you can see it's crisped up on the edges, the beans have cooked down, the chorizo is nice and brown, and the tomatoes are blistered, softened, and jammy. Now to gild this lily, I'm gonna add on a heaping handful, or about 75 grams of cold shredded cheese. Specifically, I'm using Chihuahua cheese because it's got a richness that's similar to full-fat mozzarella, but it's Mexican, so it kind of fits the theme. Behind the cheese, I'll drop on my shredded cabbage, or 15 to 20 grams worth, maybe a 1/4 cup, then 8 to 10 slices of fresh, crispy radish. Then 7 to 8 avocado slices. Behind the rads, I'll drop a generous ziggy of my thinned out sour cream. This crema really ups the luxury and brings a distinct taco supreme vibe to this pizza. Next, I'm gonna squiggle on the taco or hot sauce of my choice to bring some heat and a little bit of bonus acidity. Then finally, to bring just a touch more freshness and some color, I'm gonna add on some fresh chopped cilantro. And that's my version of the tlayuda. It's basically what a Mexican pizza should be. It's bold and in your face with a ton of bright flavors, but it's also deeply familiar and comforting, like a hug from your best buddy. The best way to eat this is actually to fold it in half. I found it basically turns the whole pizza into a giant soft taco.
Oh my God, it's so crunchy on the outside. It's almost like a double-decker taco meets thin crust pizza.
If you guys want another video for a taco flavored pizza, please watch that video right here. Now, let's eat this thing.